uranium stocks. They're doing a lot better today. We're going to go over those, and we're also going to go over two stocks, LEU, which is Centrus, and Forum Energy Metals had some big news today. We're going to look into both of those, and we're also going to touch on the commodity sector. The overall stock market is pretty flat today, but uranium's doing pretty well. We've seen a big trace back. We're going to go over the outlook, what it looks like it's going to be doing, possibly when we might see rate hikes. We're going to go over all that, and we'll just jump right into it. So first thing, I just want to show you here, uranium stocks, pretty much everything today is green, and everything on the ASX yesterday closed up pretty green as well for the most part. They're doing a lot better here in the US. So spot uranium right now, we're actually seeing a 42.75 bid and a 43.45 ask. So uranium, we've seen a little bit of trace back in uranium. Obviously, the uranium stocks, they're leverage plays. The overall market has been looking pretty crazy. We'll just look real quick right here. This is what it's looking like. The overall market, this is pretty much all the stocks. I'll jump into this and you can even see it more. That's everything today, okay? Now, uranium stocks, like I said, they're doing pretty good. These are the lowest here on this side. And everything is, this is pretty normal though for uranium, pretty volatile as you already know. But what we're going to talk about, I'm really thinking that Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, when that New York Stock Exchange listing happens, I think we're going to see that September massive run all over again. Now, I tweeted this back in May 26th of 2021. I said that the 2010 uranium mini spot run, it actually ran 80% from about $40 spot during that time in May 2010 to 72 in January of 2011. That's this right here. And this was about 7 months. Now, I said this was back in May. I said Sprott is likely to do the same run, and this is why. So 2010 had the biggest volume in spot history, and this was mostly because of the investors coming in. They started buying up a lot of that uranium in the spot market, and it was about 43 million pounds. Now, what was crazy is this actually was 43 million pounds recently that Sprott Physical Uranium Trust actually holds. That's how many pounds they have. And I thought that number is crazy because I put this back and I put 2021 to 2023 massive bull run. And, if we look at the chart here, this was when it was about $30.55, and it actually ran, like I said, 80%. It actually ran 80% from about $30 when it hit about 50 something on the ask and spot there back in September. So that was pretty interesting. We know that kind of, if you've watched my channel, you've seen the overall history of uranium. We had this massive run. We had a housing crisis, world financial crisis overall. And then we had that big run up. It started to do better again. And then we had Fukushima, literally a month or two after that. And then we had issues with China and the assessment of their licensing with their plants. Germany shut down 7 reactors. And this megaton to megawatts program, it was an overhang of 20 million pounds. This was that Russian U-308 where they recycled those warheads. That's already completed now. So we have a massive upside, I believe, when that Spot Physical Uranium Trust lists on the New York Stock Exchange. And I think that type of run can happen again. This was an old chart I'd found, and this was showing that the investor volume was pretty much at the highest during that time. These were the spot market volumes, and it cuts off right here. And this is less than 20 million pounds, but you can see, boom, it was 42, 43 million. And it was pretty much all of them. It was utilities, it was investors, traders, producers, processors. Pretty much everything was buying up in the market at that time. But that was pretty interesting. And like I said, this is what Spot did from that time, boom, all the way up. And, we've since retraced back. Now, one thing that I did see pretty alarming, and this is very, very odd, and everything's pretty much trading with each other. Now, this is Cameco, Denison, Paladin, and Energy Fuels. Now, this is Bitcoin at the very top, but it is kind of odd that everything has pretty much traded with Bitcoin. Now, it's, the overall market, you could probably see a trend there as well, the overall stock market, but it is kind of odd. It's almost like, yeah, Bitcoin's up, so yeah, uranium's going to be up, uranium stocks. So it is kind of odd. You can see this type of, trend going on. Hopefully uranium can actually unyoke itself from the market like we've been talking about. This is not something good for uranium. It's such a tiny sector. It's compared to the overall market, as you saw earlier, it's basically a little dot on there. If we look at this, pretty much uranium is going to be a small, very small dot on here. And, this is, that's why we've seen such a massive run up and trace back, with uranium. Some interesting news with Kazatomprom. This was a little alarming. So this was the other day, the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan on suppression of the activities of criminal group engaged in embezzlement from enterprises of Kazatomprom. So these law enforcement agencies of Kazakhstan detained a group of people suspected of stealing fuel and lubricants and other inventory items from Kazatomprom. So they're actively pursuing this. And this was, pretty alarming for the world's biggest uranium producer. We don't know what, who it was and what they're taking. You don't see this often. Very odd for, you might see this for a littler company. Now, today was a very, very volatile day to the downside for commodities. Coal's down 5%. We see, gas in the UK is down a bunch, and this was mainly because the pipelines, the flows of natural gas entering Slovakia and Ukraine rebounded to their highest levels so far this year. They're somewhat back to normal levels, they're saying, but as you can see, this run up can happen pretty quick. And I don't think this run up that we've seen like this is not the last of, energy prices and specifically gas there in Europe. Tensions are still high. We're keeping an eye on that, but it was a very volatile day. And as you can see here, uranium is still down here. We're still down. We're down a little bit, but overall, for the last year, we're still up 46%, 47%. So that's positive. Although, for the month, it's very stagnant. The stock I want to talk about today is LEU, which is Centrus Energy Corp. Now, this stock is a Haleu producer, for these new small modular reactors. Now, this stock has had a very impressive move. Now, it's since retraced from its about $85 high. It's up today. It's $42. But I actually bought it back here, and I do not own this stock anymore. But I bought it back here about $4 to $5 in March and April of 2020, and I sold it at about here. And the bad thing about this is, you look back and you see, stocks like this, and you're like, man, why didn't I sell? I was very close to the massive run up. You can't time the market. And I had held it, a long time already, especially for how volatile the market was. And, as you see here, it was consolidating. And I was starting to think that that it could drop. There was a lot of, there was people still shorting this, which is crazy to short a stock, especially like this with such a small float. But this stock is still on my radar, and some big positive things since I invested, we can kind of touch on in this video. And I really do like this stock, but I do want to see it get back down to these $20 levels. I'd be way more comfortable myself investing around there. And, that'd be a big trace back. But I think because it is such a small market cap now for what it does, and they're actually bringing in, cash, which is, unlike most companies in the, overall nuclear energy sector, uranium especially, you usually don't see that. They're going to fuel the new small modular reactors. Now, the vast majority of nuclear reactors this is for the enrichment, use isotope 235 as fuel. However, it only makes up 0.7 of the natural uranium mined and must therefore increase through a process called enrichment. So this increases the 235 concentration from 0.7 to about 3% and 5%, which is the levels used in most reactors. So a small number of reactors, those are the ones CANDU, those are up in Canada. They are fueled with natural uranium, which they don't have to be enriched. So there's, this is the fuel cycle, and this is why Centrus Energy is pretty important. So they are getting a lot of, when they make this Haleu, they're getting a lot of their enriched uranium from Russia. And I'll show you some charts here. So if we do have any issues with Russia, this stock, I think, could go down a lot. A lot of people probably be scared and sell it. So the enrichment process requires, just to give you a little background, uranium to be in a gaseous form. This is achieved through a process called conversion. When uranium oxide is converted to a different compound, uranium hexafluoride, which is a gas relatively at low temperatures. The uranium hexafluoride is fed into centrifuges with thousands of rapid spinning vertical tubes. That's what you see pictured here, that separates the uranium-235 from slightly heavier 238 isotopes. The centrifuges separate the uranium into two streams. One stream is the enriched uranium, the 235, and the other one is the tails containing a lower concentration of uranium-235, and that's the depleted uranium. That's the stuff, that we don't really, I don't really care about much for. I like the other side, and I like, obviously, Centrus, because they're looking to be the ones that are going to fuel all of these new small modular reactors that are going to use Haleu. Now, really quickly, I'll show you here. These are all the massive companies that are actually building these small modular reactors. Now, there's different types, but they're all going to be using Haleu. Westinghouse, General Atomics, and they've got two different ones. We see X Energy. We see, a bunch down here. These are, and like I said, these are different reactors. So, there's plenty of companies that are going to need this Haleu. Now, this demand for this Haleu, they're saying could be very large, and I believe it's going to overshoot all of this. And this is still out, a little ways, because these small modular reactors, they're getting approvals now, and we're going to start to see them, coming up in the next few years. But, these companies are going to want fuel, and, they're already on track, Centrus is, to become, the powerhouse for this. So on here, it says that even if a fraction of the demand in the NEI survey materializes, Haleu requirements would be very large. You can see this 300 metric tons. Now, this Haleu is a lot more expensive. So 14,400 USD per kilogram of Haleu. And this is about the 19% 235. So this is that like mid-range. This is the Haleu. This is the stuff that is going to be a lot safer for the reactors. And this demand is going to be very high. And this is the survey that these companies actually are putting out. They're asked about this. So it can actually be by 2030, $1.4 billion a year. And I think, like I said, there's going to be a lot higher, especially uranium prices. All of these prices are going to go up. Now, if we look back here, the one thing I was talking about earlier with Russia, we get a lot of our enriched uranium from Russia. And this is a chart here. This shows where the SWU actually comes from. We're seeing about 3,200 from Russia back in 2020. Now, most of the stuff out there is going to have a W here. That's data withheld to avoid disclosure of individual company data. That is because the uranium market is such an opaque market. That is why you see such a crap show in the overall market. And that's why it's so annoying sometimes. The price, it can be so stagnant. There's little information sometimes out there, but we do know supply is going down and the demand is actually going up, and the demand for Haleu is going to be big. But if anything happens to this big supplier in the future with Russia, say something happened, I think, Centrus, because they get a lot of that from them, it could go down pretty quickly. But I think, they probably would figure something out. As you can see, there's obviously other places, that the purchases of enrichment services from the U.S., this is the U.S. nuclear power reactors. This is where they get them. So this is something that I think I got to keep an eye on too, because there are tensions in Russia. And even if the market thinks that these things could happen, you can see a trace back in the company. So I'm not buying the company yet. It is nice to see this, but like I said, this is a little bit older data, a couple of years old already now. And a lot of these, things could be going up. So it could be even more risky, especially getting 20% from Russia. So this is something I keep my eye on for the company. They always put some interesting stuff here, but they said 750 grams of this Haleu, about 3 tablespoons would meet electricity needs for a person for life. And that's really interesting. It's literally 3 tablespoons. So it just shows you what these new reactors are going to, how, efficient and safe they're going to be. They're first of their kind. They are licensed for this Haleu production. And they've got this construction plant going there in Ohio. So Forum Energy Metals, some big news today. They have a 10th uranium project. Now, I'm very bullish on this company. It's an explorer. It's still very risky, but we're going into this uranium bull market. It's nice to have such a vast supply of these projects. And they got another one. This is Cameco's former deposit, right along the lines of Orano's Kigavik. And, this is very interesting. The company is just very proactive at getting projects. So this is the former claim map. This is Kigavik. This is the camp that they actually have there. This is a little bit farther. This is pretty far from the Athabasca Basin, but there is still infrastructure out there. And they have had obviously drilling done there before. This is the overall map. You can kind of see Athabasca Basin's down here. It is a little farther, but like I said, this area is really rich in uranium. You can see here 133 million pounds at Kigavik, if you didn't know about that. And the grade is 0.46%. And they were looking to produce 7.8 million pounds of uranium per year at that 17-year mine life. 3 deposits there at Kigavik. So this, being very close to that, it is interesting. It is interesting for a tiny company with a market cap like this to get a project right here near this again. And that is because management is they have very close ties to Orano, okay? Their chief exploration officer has a very good relationship with them, worked for them for many years as well. They've been in the Athabasca Basin since like the 70s. That's really something that I really hold value with this company, very high. Management's proactive and they're actually wanting to discover uranium. So this is Cameco's drill program, 2008 to 2012. Now, back then, as the uranium price started to drop, I think that they kind of pulled off. The grades weren't as good, obviously, as something, in the Athabasca Basin, closer that they, found. So obviously things have not, been pushed since too much, but I think this is going to be a nice upside for a company with a tiny market cap. These are all the companies right now that are up, that are getting added to the ETFs. These are by February 7th. So 6 more days. You can see here, this is how they're doing today. This percentage here, green is up, good. And I'm sure that the ETFs are starting to buy already into these. And the only one down is Fission 3.0 and obviously Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. But it is nice to see that Forum Energy Metals was added to one of the ETFs as well. But this was how they scored recently, and this changes sometimes daily. But it is interesting to see that these stocks are starting to go back up as well. And, when Western Uranium, when I bought in that, when it was 70 cents and then it was added to the ETFs, this thing ran to $3 plus. So, it's $1.35 right now, since sold off since then. But it is interesting to see when they add that. The Discord, this is where I keep everyone updated. I haven't made a video in a few days, about 4 or 5 days, but I've been active in the Discord. I'm there pretty much 24/7. I keep it open all the time. The channels in the Discord help so much. It helps me so much, especially for uranium, because there's actually 100,000 plus posts in here the last 2 years. It's a collective of so much information that can easily be searched up here. Each channel, there's different things. The uranium price, we have Uranium Live. It's the most up-to-date uranium tweets. There's uranium, any type of uranium news out there. We have channels for that as well. Uranium News Live. All of these channels will instantly 24/7 put information in there that can be searched. The uranium price as well. All of this stuff, any updates with the market, we have 24/7 updates. It's going to be put in here. And all of these channels, you can actually see the link in the description below. And there's so much content being posted in here all the time. I'm in here all the time posting. I can also go and search and look up anything that's been posted that I posted, things that I might have forgotten, charts, pictures, everything I uploaded in the past 2 years. That's what's great about having the Discord. It is an investor community that, it's a collection of data. You don't have to worry about drama from social media. You don't have ads or anything. Very high quality, very fast. And there's like 35 channels I have in here, private Discord. And if you want access to that, link in the description below. Uranium, I think, is going to do well. We just still need to get unyoked from the overall market. It could still have a very big trace back. It's nice to see uranium recover a little bit, but I still am holding a lot of cash. I do not think that the overall volatility in the market's over yet. I think once those rate hikes possibly happen, that we see uranium unyoked from the market. Physical Uranium Trust has to get its volume back up. And I think that New York Stock Exchange listing, something like that, could really push it up. And we could see that September run all over again. Let me know, did you buy any uranium stocks? Let me know below.